Okay, so I'm going to record this video here, and I'm basically sharing how I would interact with AI to deduce the parts of a dissertation or a group of dissertations that I would need to focus on. I'm doing this on behalf of a student who is sort of struggling to get their footing on what they want to include in their methodology section. So I'm going to share my screen, and when I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to let's see, let me make everything sort of visible. So the whole desktop. And these are the dissertations that I want to sort of pull from here. This is a sandbox that I've created and that I live in daily so that I can orate things in or write in prompts here, edit them, and then put them over into GPT, which I use. That's my primary language learning model and AI tool is ChatGPT. There's so many tools these days that it's sort of dizzying the possibility, given how specific certain tools can be at doing a particular task. So, for example, like lesson planning tools and stuff like that. But I find that, especially since I pay for GPT, the model does a good job of answering to not only the initial prompt, but also the feedback that I'll provide to it as I'm sort of making my way through the discussion. And it is a discussion, and that's part of what we're going to see here. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to start off with a sort of a blanket description. The attached documents are dissertations that I would like to analyze for the subtitles of the methodology section, period. So please identify the individual subsections that make up the methodology sections of each of the attached documents. Period. Then please present an amalgamated list of all of the components of the methodology sections found in these documents, comma, eliminating redundancies or duplicates. So what I want is a list of the components that I can then leverage later. Also, please provide a small description of each of the sections in the final list. Period. The description should be aimed at helping a scholar understand what should go in that section from their own research. Okay, cool. So I voice texted this in. The grammar syntax is okay. There's some capitalizations, but GPT doesn't really care. So I'm just going to plot this in here, and then I'm going to drag it. I'll just drag them in from over here since this is right here. So go right in. Whoops. Great. And then once these all turn into little PDF figures here, then I will press enter and send this off on its merry way to do its analysis. And then we'll wait here. It looks like everything's in, and then see what we come up with. And if it feels good and comprehensive enough, then it'll be done. If it doesn't feel comprehensive enough, and this is really important, then we would re-prompt or we would respond back. Because again, this is a conversation. So we would respond back to the software and say, well, that wasn't quite right, or here's what we need as an adjustment. Okay. So it's doing a pretty good job thus far. Excellent. Excellent. I can tell you right now, I am going to expand what's here because I want particular language that might be helpful. So let me get started on that next prompt over here. I'm just going to go down here, not limit that prompt, but just go down and start over. So now that individual sections have been identified, comma, please provide critical scholarly language to support each of these sections, comma, the kind of language that a scholar would use in their own writing to really strengthen it, period. We're looking for particular strong methodological language. Right. Cool. Excellent. Okay. Now, I don't know when I put this in here if it's going to add to what's here and pump out the list with the categories and the descriptions and then the language, but it might just pump out the title of the section and then the language that's going to use. And I'm going to say also provide APA citations where appropriate to support this work. Then follow up with full reference citation. And while this is going, I'll tell you straight off the bat that like these citations, especially when in the core GPT model, I would trust, I would say like 70%, 70-80% to get you started. And then when you see certain names like these names that you or one might know, you know to trust that particular citation, but you simply check every single one just to make sure that the thing not only exists, but that the resource actually says or depicts what is being explained or suggested or posited here by GPT, because it could be wrong. And the thing about it is when it's wrong, it's like way off. It's just it's like wildly different resource or just not the right names at all. Yeah, there are lots of things that could happen as sort of an outcome of using this way. But this is more just to get us flowing in the right direction. And then frankly, to really hold together a methodology, it doesn't really need necessarily this many references and resources, because a bunch of these, like for example, any of this Cresswell stuff here is a whole book of sort of methodological underpinnings. So you could probably write a whole methodology based on like 2 or 3 of these resources. So it's again to get you moving in the right direction, and then from there you'll sort of figure out how you actually want to undergird and support your work with scholarship that definitely exists and definitely depicts what it is that you're trying to say. So let's just see here. Just looking through. I immediately see a discrepancy between what was listed above and what's not here. That's totally fine. Doesn't matter. Like I said, it's just to get us started. So I just want to check again that excuse me, this is just the description or just the language. Let's see here. Let me see. Research and service. Research questions should be specific, researchable, it'll be grounded. Scaffold, direct question. Great. Okay, so this language, if I wanted to go one step further, I can sense that it is part description and part language. If I wanted to go one step further to make this really digestible for a student, junior scholar, whatever, I might prompt the software again to lay out the second half of each one of the sub responses as here's what you want to say or here's what you want to put in. I'm not really going to do that now because I don't really think that's necessary. However, I do think that it's worth noting that the conversation can always go further. And just to go back to the prompts here, like this is not short. This is not tell me what's in methodology. You have to be very specific when you're working with these language learning models as to what exactly it is that you want and how you want it expressed. And then, of course, you have to check over this. This is like sending your, associate from class an assignment and saying, could you do this for me? Or could you write this letter on my behalf to my professor? And not necessarily knowing how they're going to respond, meaning in the written format, you need to check that work. No matter how nice they are, they may say details that don't actually exist. They may not know details that are really important for the conversation. And likewise here, you have to check what this thing writes and then move it forward in your writing practice in whatever way feels ethically appropriate. Because this isn't going to necessarily frame its findings the way that you would. And you need to retain your voice as a scholar, as a writer, as a voice in your field. Okay. I hope that's helpful. That was sort of fun for me to do. So I'm glad to have done it.